The story opens with a boy named Hibiki bolting across an empty valley, running for his damn life while a horned rabbit chases him down. He has zero idea how he ended up in this nightmare or what is even pursuing him, so the entire situation feels like it slammed into him out of nowhere. He blurts out what the hell that creature even is, and in that exact moment a female voice replies, coolly informing him that it is a level 1 horned rabbit. He has no clue who the voice belongs to or where it is coming from, but he desperately asks it not to leave because he is genuinely scared. The rabbit suddenly springs at him, yet he somehow twists out of the way at the final second and crashes down on top of it, accidentally crushing it to death beneath him. At the same time, deep within the woods, an elf girl moves quietly between the trees when a mysterious male voice begins guiding her, instructing her to head east because something incredibly valuable is waiting there for her. Back in the valley, Hibiki feels a wave of relief after surviving the horned rabbit. Yet he still has no clue where he is or what that strange voice actually was. To make matters worse, he checks his phone and sees there is zero signal, wiping out any chance of calling for help. Trying to keep himself from freaking out, he convinces himself the voice was not real and that he must have imagined it. Hunger soon creeps in, and he briefly considers eating the horned rabbit, but quickly shuts that idea down since he has no way of knowing if it is even edible. The voice suddenly chimes in again, analyzing the corpse and informing Hibiki that horned rabbit is actually a ranked delicacy that tastes great in stews. Hearing that, he decides he might as well carry it along for now, even if the thought still makes his stomach turn a bit. He then starts paying closer attention to the mysterious voice and realizes it only seems to respond when he asks something directly. So he experiments by questioning random objects like his backpack. The voice replies that it is a bag crafted from materials that do not exist in this world. He keeps testing it with other items, and every single time, the voice delivers a precise and detailed explanation. Putting that together, Hibiki wonders if the voice can evaluate him too, so he asks about himself, and suddenly a translucent screen pops up in front of him displaying all his stats. As he scans through it, everything like his name and age checks out, but what really throws him off is the job listed as praiser provisional, which makes absolutely no sense since he was just living the ordinary life of a high school student until now. He then asks the voice who she actually is, and she responds that she is his status support, though she cannot reveal anything considered personal information. Hibiki thinks that is seriously unfair, but what does lift his mood a little is seeing the massive list of skills available for him to learn. The expert skill catches his eye, so he tries activating it immediately, but nothing happens. Figuring he might as well start with something simple, he decides to begin the tutorial, only for the voice to inform him that the tutorial has already been running this whole time. Hibiki doesn't understand what she's getting at, so he drops it and decides to test out the world map skill, which immediately projects a glowing hologram right in front of him. He studies it carefully and soon realizes it is not a true map at all. It is only outlining the route he has already traveled. That is when it finally clicks that he has been wandering in circles this entire time. So once he figures that out, he uses it properly to steer himself and continues forward. By the time the sun begins to set, he notices a road stretching below him, but he gets a bit too fired up and stumbles, crashing face first onto the stone pavement. As he pushes himself up, the voice calmly declares that he has just unlocked the title of Castaway in Another World. Hibiki is confused for a second, but that thought is quickly shoved aside. A massive monster suddenly looms over him, and he is convinced this is the end. But out of nowhere, a glowing magic arrow flies in and drops the creature on the spot. He turns in disbelief and sees that it came from an elf girl standing on a nearby rock. Just before he approaches her, the voice activates his speech function so he can both speak and understand the language of this world. After thanking her for saving his life, she introduces herself as Emilia. Hibiki notices her pointed ears right away and assumes she is dressed like an elf, so he tells her he likes her cosplay, but Emilia clearly has no clue what he means. She then asks why he was wandering around the maze-eater grassland, and Hibiki awkwardly explains that he kind of just showed up there out of thin air, which leaves her completely stunned. The voice proceeds to perform a full appraisal on Emilia, and Hibiki is stunned to discover she is genuinely an elf. As he scans through her stats, he is even more shocked to learn that she is actually 56 years old. Emilia goes on to explain that the maze-eater grassland is not a normal field at all, but a monster that disguises itself as one. It never attacks outright. but instead waits patiently for its victims to exhaust themselves while wandering aimlessly before swallowing them whole. And hearing that makes Hibiki realize how dangerously close he was to becoming its meal. Amalia suddenly wraps Hibiki in a hug and tells him he did surprisingly well for such a young boy. She says that because she assumes he is around 10 years old. But when he corrects her and says he is 16, she quickly pulls back and admits she never expected someone his age to be stuck in such a small frame. Soon after, night settles in and they set up camp, where Hibiki learns that in this world you are officially considered an adult once you turn 15. After they finish cooking and eating the horned rabbit, Hibiki asks Emilia where they actually are. She instantly spits her tea straight into his face at such a ridiculous question. Flustered, she wipes him off while apologizing and explains that they are in the kingdom of Habrastia. Hibiki tells her that means nothing to him since he is from Japan, but she has never even heard of it, which only solidifies his belief that he truly has been transported to another world. Sensing that he must feel isolated so far from home, Emilia gently tells him she will escort him to the city tomorrow, and Hibiki thanks her sincerely. And while Hibiki sleeps, Emilia studies him quietly and starts to believe he must be the precious treasure the spirit mentioned to her. Not long after that realization, she slowly slips into sleep herself. Hibiki meanwhile falls into a dream about his old life and revisits a gentle memory with his 3 closest friends, Amane, Kyoyuko, and Teiki, hanging out at the diner where Amane works. They meant the world to him, even if they never passed up the chance to tease him about being way too short for a 16-year-old. Then the dream shifts to the moment everything changed. It was the final day of school right before summer vacation, and just as he was about to step into a classroom, a blinding burst of light swallowed him, and the next instant, he found himself in this world. He then jolts awake from the dream and grabs his phone, wondering how worried his friends must be by now. When he lifts his gaze to the sky, he notices strange glowing green shapes drifting overhead. The voice identifies them and explains that they are part of a special protective barrier Emilia created to guard the area. Hibiki takes a breath and accepts the truth that magic really does exist here, which means he truly has been transported to another world. Trying to make sense of his own situation, he asks the voice what it means to be an appraiser provisional. The voice responds that it is a role granted to him by a deity, ranked at rarity B. It grants him the appraisal skill, allowing him to analyze and reveal the abilities and attributes of any target. Yet it offers no combat techniques at all, which is why it falls under a non-combat class. Hibiki is still trying to process everything, so he gives up on overthinking it and goes back to sleep. When morning comes, Emilia wakes first and reflects on how she rescued Hibiki the day before and ended up spending the night outside beside him. Soon after, Hibiki stirs awake as well, and together they set out toward Lowell, the closest town. As they travel through the forest, Emilia tells him it will take roughly a day and a half to get there. She also warns him that monsters roam the area, though she assures him he has nothing to fear because she will protect him. She is genuinely surprised that Hibiki could even detect them, and he explains that it is all because of his world map skill. Emilia is shocked when she learns he possesses the world map skill, since it holds a triple a rarity ranking. But when he casually adds that he is an appraiser provisional, her reaction is far less impressed, and she almost treats it like a punchline. Hibiki honestly cannot figure out why the world map skill is considered such a huge advantage, since in his eyes it only tracks where he has already traveled and alerts him to nearby monsters. And Emilia can hardly believe he fails to grasp just how invaluable that ability is when it comes to surviving in a place like this. Hibiki then brings up his world map and asks whether anything dangerous is nearby, and it identifies a crystal-horned rabbit within the vicinity. Emilia's eyes light up at the news, explaining that crystal-horned rabbits are incredibly rare and can sell for as much as 200 gold coins. Without hesitation, she grabs Hibiki and urges him to guide her directly to it. Keeping their distance, they follow the rabbit's trail while Emilia uses her magic to conceal their presence, masking both their scent and the sound of their movements. Hibiki is thoroughly impressed and praises Emilia for her incredible abilities, but she quickly returns the compliment, insisting that he is the truly remarkable one, thanks to his world map skill. She explains that any adventure party would be fortunate to have him, and since appraisal is a non-combat profession, he could safely remain in the rear while supporting the frontline fighters. Though Emilia is eager to form a party with Hibiki, she does not want to seem overly desperate, so she decides to demonstrate her talents and let him make the first move. She raises her bow to aim, but Hibiki notices she has no arrow. Smiling, she explains that as a spirit archer, she can create arrows from wind itself. She then forms a spirit arrow and releases it toward the rabbit, but the creature narrowly evades the shot at the last instant, leaving her momentarily dumbfounded. Realizing that pursuing it now would be futile due to its high-speed escapability, Emilia prepares to abandon the chase. However, when Hibiki learns that the rabbit cannot activate its skills while attacking, an idea strikes him. If he can lure the rabbit into charging at him, Emilia would have the perfect opportunity to strike. She hesitates, doubting such a simple plan could succeed, but Hibiki reassures her, explaining that his appraisal revealed the creature to be fairly dumb as a rock. As the rabbit emerges into the open, a stone wall suddenly rises before it, startling the creature. Moments later, it spots Hibiki lying atop a rock and immediately takes the bait. And just as it lunges forward, Emilia releases her shot with flawless precision, bringing the rabbit down instantly. She is genuinely surprised the strategy worked so perfectly, noting that the stone walls force the rabbit into a single path, leaving it no choice but to charge directly at Hibiki. Ironically, the creature's misjudgment of him as harmless sealed its fate. Shortly afterward, the mysterious voice informs Hibiki that his skills have leveled up, leaving him puzzled since Emilia delivered the final blow. She clarifies that he actively contributed by continuously using his appraisal skill and placing himself in danger as bait, earning the level up through his vital role in the hunt. Elsewhere, the deity responsible for bringing Hibiki into this world observes his progress with satisfaction. Still, the deity reminds himself that this is merely the tutorial phase, and Hibiki's journey has only just begun. Meanwhile, at the Adventurers Guild, we see a girl named Ivel has just completed her registration. The receptionist directs her toward the job board, but Ivel calmly explains that she already has her first mission prepared, and she is searching for something truly extraordinary. After some time, Hibiki and Emilia make it to Lowell City. Emilia quickly throws a cloak over him because his outfit sticks out way too much. Their plan is simple: sell the rabbit's horn and use the money to get Hibiki proper clothes. They expect at least 200 gold coins, which might even leave enough for weapons and armor. Hibiki then casually wonders how much a single gold coin is even worth, which makes Emilia look at him like he is some kind of alien again. So he turns to his status support voice for answers, and she calmly explains the exchange rate. 1 gold coin equals about 10,000 yen. That is a ridiculous amount of money, and suddenly Emilia's excitement makes perfect sense to him. Out of nowhere, Emilia bluntly tells her new partner to stop sounding like a clueless, wide-eyed idiot with zero street smarts. She insists she is only saying it because there are plenty of people out there who would happily scam someone like him. She does not sugarcoat it at all, and the delivery is harsh enough that Hibiki quietly decides she probably does not have many friends. When they arrive at the Adventurers Guild, a few adventurers stare and question why Emilia teamed up with a kid. She calmly explains that he might look young, but he is actually an adult. A party called Silver Banner steps in and tells them to ignore the usual loudmouths since they always act like morons anyway, and they head out after wishing her luck. Emilia then approaches the receptionist, Jewel, and says she has an item to sell. They are escorted to a separate room, where Hibiki immediately gets distracted by how insanely shredded the man is. The guy catches the way Hibiki is staring and flexes on purpose. He proudly declares that his physique is the result of pure dedication and relentless effort. His name is Bals Deliard, and he happens to be the guildmaster. Hibiki instantly idolizes him, while the girls look completely confused. Hibiki then admits that no matter how hard he trains, he never gets results like that, so Bals advises him to focus on building his latissimus dorsi first. The girls quickly lose patience listening to them geek out over workout routines and shut the whole conversation down. When Emilia reveals the horn, Bals is stunned and immediately offers 400 gold coins for it. That is double what Emilia expected, so Hibiki assumes she will gladly accept. Instead, he nearly falls over when she snaps back and tells Bals not to insult her intelligence. She refuses outright and says she will not part with it for less than 800 gold coins. They go back and forth for a while, but Emilia barely moves from her demand. She even reminds him she could just take it to the capital's Adventurers Guild and sell it there, forcing Bals to finally raise his offer to 700 gold coins. Emilia beams at the final amount, and Jewel angrily mentions that it will be deducted straight from Bals's salary. Emilia is practically glowing with pride, convinced this win will push Hibiki to officially form a party with her. Then, after an unfortunate wardrobe mishap on her part, the men are promptly thrown out. Once he is by himself, the support voice informs Hibiki that his tutorial skill has now met the requirements to level up. The tutorial skill is something granted to people with a low survival rate. It allows them to receive assistance from a deity, helping them gain the knowledge and abilities needed to stay alive in this world. Hibiki suddenly hears a man's voice, but he brushes it off, assuming he must have imagined it. He concludes that this skill exists to protect him, and he realizes that making it this far was probably thanks to the deity's help. The male voice then tells him to keep revering him, since that motivates him to put in more effort. This time Hibiki is certain he actually heard it, and the voice openly states that he is the deity supporting him. He explains that he is speaking directly to Hibiki, but he cannot do so whenever he wants. He promises to support him as much as possible, though staying alive and taking care of himself ultimately depends on Hibiki. Just as Hibiki starts forming a dozen questions in his mind, the deity disappears. Right after that, the support voice announces that with the tutorial skill leveling up, the guide's direct support will now come to an end. At that moment, Emilia returns and is informed that she has been assigned a designated quest. The letter clearly troubles her, and she apologizes to Hibiki. She has to leave the city right away, since there is no way she can turn down a request from her hometown. She cannot bring him along either, which means this is where their paths split. Hibiki feels let down and quietly wonders if Emilia was the guide the voice mentioned. Somewhere else, the girl named Ivel continues searching for that special something. She is struggling to locate it, but then an idea begins to form. Then, as Emilia prepares to depart, Hibiki reassures her that he will manage on his own. She has already done more than enough for him, and he refuses to drag her down. He tells her that he plans to try becoming an adventurer. He noticed there are quests available even for non-combat roles, and that gave him hope. Emilia is confident they will meet again, and she tells him to hold onto her cloak until then. Hibiki jokes that she might need it if she runs into another wardrobe accident, and she immediately bolts off in embarrassment. After they part ways, Emilia unexpectedly runs into Ivel. Emilia explains that she is in a rush because she has to head back home on short notice. Ivel instantly understands that she means the elf homeland, and she reveals that she is traveling in that direction as well. After Emilia departed, Hibiki practically lived in his bed, drifting in and out of sleep most of the day. His phone had completely run out of power, and he still had zero clue how to return to his original world. The deity who once spoke to him had stayed silent ever since that single encounter, and Hibiki understood that revealing his secret to anyone was out of the question. He refused to risk drawing attention to himself, so he made up his mind to keep quiet about where he truly came from. Before heading out for dinner, he reflects on the fact that the only thing keeping him afloat is the gold earned from selling the horn. That money will not last forever, which means he needs to start looking for a job soon. He starts wondering what he is actually capable of, so he checks his stats. Unsure of how strong they truly are, he asks about them, and the support voice advises him not to attempt solo combat. He then is thrilled to see he earned a new title, but the excitement fades quickly. The title is Older Lady Killer, and he has absolutely no idea what that is supposed to mean. On top of that, he has gained 2 new skills, Contract and Medical Book. The voice explains that he can absorb the contents of the medical book by reading through it. But if he intends to perform advanced medical treatments, she strongly suggests going through every single page. She warns him that once he starts, he will not be able to stop halfway. But Hibiki brushes it off. He figures it could come in handy, so he decides to read the entire thing. The voice sighs before initiating the process. Hibiki wonders how long it will take him to read all of it, but it is nothing like he imagined. Instead of casually flipping through pages, the full contents are forcefully crammed into his brain at once, and he lets out a scream of pure agony. Meanwhile, a maid named Stalia tracks down Emilia. Emilia warmly greets her loyal attendant, who has arrived to escort her back. She introduces Ivel, and Ivel immediately assumes they have formed a party together. A few days later, the support voice announces that the study of the medical book has finally been completed. Completely drained, Hibiki reminds himself that he still needs to go shopping. He buys some new armor and thinks about how brutal that medical book experience really was. The voice explains that each skill comes with its own unique method of acquisition. Hibiki thanks Status Support Son, but he quickly grows tired of saying such a long name. He wonders aloud if he can just call her Sapo-chan instead. She falls silent for a moment, and it becomes obvious she actually likes it when she responds by saying that Sapo-chan accepts the proposal. After that, the Silver Banner party storms into the Adventurers Guild in complete chaos. Their captain is barely hanging on because he and a Silver Ruby Wolf ended up killing each other at the exact same moment. Blood keeps pouring out of him without stopping, and his teammates are praying the guild master can somehow pull off a miracle. But luck is not on their side, and they are informed that Bowles is currently away from town. They explain in panic that they already used every healing spell they knew, yet nothing worked. Hibiki notices just how severe the blood loss is, and he starts wondering if the medical book ability might actually save him. Sapo suddenly cuts in and states that there is still a possibility. Hibiki asks the group if they are willing to let him try, and they immediately question whether he is even a healer. He admits that he is actually an appraiser, which makes them even more doubtful that he can do anything useful. However, he clarifies that he also possesses a medical skill, so they reluctantly agree to take the risk. Hibiki then activates the ability, and Sapo triggers the medical book function known as examination. Through this, he discovers that the man has dith poison circulating in his body. It is a toxin derived from poisonous herbs, and it makes it nearly impossible to halt the bleeding. The man has roughly 5 minutes remaining, so Hibiki desperately thinks about how to treat him. Sapo explains that full restoration will be required, including regenerating the arm and leg he lost. She advises using Hyper Cure and Perfect Heal, but these are advanced tier abilities that demand 650 magic power, and the problem is that Hibiki only has 56 MP. Everyone grows anxious, so Hibiki tells them that the bleeding cannot be stopped because of the toxin. The poison must be eliminated first, and then his missing limbs must be restored. Hibiki frantically asks if anyone present can cast Hyper Cure or Perfect Heal, but none of them can. Now there are only 4 minutes left, and he struggles to think of any possible solution. At that moment, Sapo suggests using a technical ability called Contract. If he asks others to temporarily funnel their MP into him, Hibiki will be able to carry out the treatment using the pooled magic power. A simple spoken agreement will suffice, and it will grant him access to those advanced spells. Hibiki quickly grasps the idea and asks everyone to form a contract with him. He explains that they only need to lend him a portion of their magic power, and with it, he can save their leader Jade. No one there has ever encountered something like this before, but there is no room for questions. They are frantic to save their companion, so they agree to establish the contract, and together they manage to funnel some magic power into Hibiki. Yet they're still 174 short. Jewel then steps forward, wanting to contribute, and volunteers to join the contract as well. Sabo clarifies that it can be done, and Hibiki simply needs to announce that additional members are being included. Hibiki declares that he will expand the contract to include another party, which allows Jewel to take part. She transfers another 273 magic power, and at last Hibiki has enough to activate Hyper Cure. Hyper Cure removes the poison, and immediately after, Hibiki casts Perfect Heal. A radiant glow bursts from Jade's body as Hibiki pushes far beyond his limits to restore him. When the light fades, Sapo announces that the leader's missing limbs have fully regenerated. The complete restoration is successful, and everyone lets out a breath of relief. Hibiki, however, is utterly drained from overexerting himself, and he drops to the floor unconscious. While he is out, Hibiki dreams of a time when one of his friends lectured him. She had been angry because he always acted first and thought later. She reminded him about the time he jumped into the water to rescue a drowning dog and the time he climbed up to save a cat stranded on a rooftop. She warned him that someone would not always be there to pull him out of danger and that he needed to be more cautious. He is suddenly brought back to reality as Sapo informs him that his job level has risen from level 2 to level 5. His technical ability contract has also advanced from level 1 to level 2. Hibiki reassures Jewel that he is feeling fine now and apologizes for causing trouble. Jewel quickly denies that he was any trouble at all, reminding him that he saved her younger brother Jade, and he is deeply thankful as well. Hibiki refuses to claim all the credit, emphasizing that he could not have succeeded without everyone sharing their strength with him. Jewel insists that it only worked because of him and tells him to accept their appreciation. She then discloses that she has imposed strict silence on the incident so that rumors will not spread. Hibiki feels relieved, yet he is curious about her reasoning. Jewel explains that possessing the ability to use Hyper Cure and Perfect Heal is almost unheard of. If word spreads, it is certain that someone will try to take advantage of him for profit. To prevent that, Jewel suggests he consider joining an adventurer party. He would be far safer surrounded by reliable fighters. Hibiki is unsure whether he will even remain in the city after this, and he does not want to impose on anyone. Still, he understands that as someone who cannot fight, having protection might be wise. Jewel mentions there is another option as well, which would be to employ a personal bodyguard. Elsewhere, inside a prison cell, a young girl clings tightly to a fearsome beast. The creature reassures her that she should not be afraid, promising that it will rip apart anyone who dares to harm her. The following morning, Hibiki makes his way to the Debbie company in search of a bodyguard and is formally introduced to its owner Adrathan Debbie. The instant Debbie lays eyes on Hibiki, he practically melts with enthusiasm, hovering around him because he claims he can literally smell wealth on the guy. Apparently, he possesses a rare skill that allows him to detect a sweet fragrance coming from people who are either already rich or destined to become rich in the near future. Hibiki is then shown a lineup of bulky, battle-ready candidates to serve as his guard, but he rejects them all at once, not because they lack power, but because none of them possesses enough MP. In the end, his goal is to utilize the Hyper Cure and Perfect Heal abilities from the medical grimoire, and that demands a companion with a solid mana pool. Debbie assures him there are countless alternatives he can offer, but right then, Hibiki hears a quiet suggestion from the deity, advising him to search for someone personally instead. As Debbie starts guiding him toward the next group of prospects, Hibiki notices a shadowy hallway tucked away to the side. Debbie mentions that there are a few individuals down there, though he strongly advises against considering them since they are unsuitable for normal duties or combat assignments. They were unable to return to their original lands, so he allowed them to remain under his roof. Hibiki wonders if their situation might resemble his own circumstances, so he asks to be taken there anyway. Inside, he discovers a wolf beastman who appears to be guarding a young girl. Curious about why they are confined, he questions Debbie, who explains that the beastman once went berserk while attempting to shield the girl. She has been confirmed to possess magical talent, but she cannot control it yet, and her power erupts unpredictably without warning. Taking that into account, Hibiki attempts to appraise them and is shocked to see portions of their stats concealed. Sappo informs him that their information has been tampered with and advises him to activate his Expert Eye ability, the highest tier appraisal skill in existence, personally bestowed upon him by the deity. Hibiki re-examines them using Expert Eye and learns that the beastman is named Claude, a hero at level 95. The girl, meanwhile, is Lillian, marked with the Raging Sanctuary status, signifying that her soul is directly linked to the divine realm. Hibiki reflects on it and realizes they both possess more than enough MP, though he hesitates, wondering if it is even permissible for him to take a hero and a sage along. The deity calmly responds, telling him he is free to act as he wishes. On top of that, Sappo suggests he apply a technical skill known as Relief Measure. Without giving a detailed explanation, Sappo hints that it may help remove whatever curse is weighing Claude down. Deciding to trust the suggestion, Hibiki resolves to purchase both of them, and Debbie immediately lets out a sharp, delighted squeal as the scent of prosperity radiating from Hibiki intensifies far beyond what it was moments earlier. Afterward, Hibiki brings Claude and Lillian out to a wide open field. Claude instantly starts wondering what the hell Hibiki is about to do with the two of them. But Hibiki simply tells him to take it easy and breathe because he is actually here to cure him, which leaves Claude completely shaken to hear. He does tell Lillian, though, that he will need her assistance to make this work, but Claude starts thinking this could be some kind of setup or scheme aimed at them. But Lillian tells him to quit overthinking and keep quiet, reminding him that he has always been the one shielding and rescuing her whole life. So this time, she wants to be the one who saves him for once. Hibiki then clarifies to Lillian that to make this succeed, he will require a significant share of her MP and that she must first agree to form a contract with him. Lillian agrees without the slightest pause and instantly hands over her MP, giving Hibiki exactly what he needs to trigger the perfect heal technique. Claude's severed limbs are completely regenerated, and every last injury on his body disappears as if it had never existed. Lillian is overwhelmed with joy at the sight and rushes straight into Claude's arms, wrapping him in a tight embrace. Claude then tells Hibiki how profoundly thankful he is, admitting it almost feels unreal how unbearably heavy and drained he felt just moments earlier. Hibiki tells him it was most likely due to the curse placed upon him, and Claude is genuinely startled hearing that because knowledge of his curse should be sealed away and inaccessible even to someone possessing an appraiser ability. Hibiki also tells him he is a hero and then informs Lillian that she is destined to become a sage someday one day. Claude is left utterly confused about how Hibiki could possibly know any of this. So Hibiki explains that the deity personally granted him the expert eye skill. That revelation makes Claude tremble in disbelief because he understands perfectly well what that skill represents and how significant it is. Hibiki then immediately begins working on breaking the curse weighing on Claude and activates the relief measure skill. But to both his and Lillian's total shock, Claude is suddenly bound tightly in thick, heavy chains that appear out of nowhere. Then a massive pair of scissors drops down toward him. At first glance, it seems like Claude has been stabbed, which horrifies both Hibiki and Lillian, but he remains alive, as the scissors slice cleanly through one of the chains that had been restraining him all this time. Claude pauses to assess his condition and realizes that while he is far from regaining the full strength he once possessed, he can already sense a solid portion of his power steadily returning. He then lowers his head respectfully toward Hibiki and sincerely apologizes for the disrespectful attitude he showed earlier. And after saying all that, he tells Hibiki that he wishes to carry out the ceremony of loyalty together. Hibiki is completely clueless about what that even means, so Claude patiently breaks it down for him, explaining that it is a sacred vow where he dedicates his entire soul to Hibiki and swears before all that exists to stay at his side no matter what the future throws at them. Sappo then cuts in and advises Hibiki to activate his contract skill to formalize the ceremony of loyalty. Since contracts have the authority to bind everyone involved to their word, that means if he and Claude enter one together, they will be strictly obligated to honor every promise they make. Hibiki considers it carefully and decides it actually sounds perfectly reasonable, so he agrees to proceed with the pact. The ritual then begins, and Claude openly declares his unwavering allegiance to Hibiki, and once Hibiki accepts and confirms it, the agreement is sealed between them. A symbol then forms on both of their wrists, revealed to be the emblem of the light spirits, marking the devotion and trust they now share, and Lillian observes the entire scene and beams with joy as it unfolds. At the same time, Emilia, Ivel, and Stalia continue forward on their travels. After covering some distance, Emilia proposes that they pause at a nearby hot spring to relax for the remainder of the day. Stalia is thrilled at first, but once she thinks it through, she quickly tries to dissuade Emilia, realizing that stopping there would mean bathing alongside Ivel, and she has no intention of letting Ivel get any closer to Emilia than she already has. Still, despite Stalia's persistent objections, Emilia insists on visiting the springs, forcing Stalia to reluctantly give in. At the same time, Hibiki carefully explains to Claude and Lillian why he must borrow MP from others to activate his perfect heal ability, and both of them listen closely and grasp the situation without confusion. Once everything is clear, they establish a shared contract together, which results in Hibiki's technical contract skill increasing in level. Claude then points out that Hibiki has been softly murmuring to himself this entire time and asks what that is about. Hibiki calmly replies that it is merely a guiding voice that provides explanations and direction whenever he needs them. Claude goes completely still, his expression tightening in disbelief as it clicks that what Hibiki just described is the tutorial skill, a divine ability bestowed directly by the deity himself. It does not take long for Claude to connect the dots and realize that this can only mean Hibiki truly came from another world. And Hibiki is honestly caught off guard to discover that Claude already knows other worlds even exist. Hibiki asks him straight up if the fact that he is from another world bothers him at all, and Claude answers without hesitation that it changes absolutely nothing, and that his loyalty to Hibiki remains untouched. They resume their travels, and Claude explains that the deity watching over Hibiki is most likely the chief deity. In this world, there are roughly 11 deities in total, and the chief deity stands as the very first among them. The tutorial skill and expert eye are sacred blessings that only he can grant, and no other deity has that authority. And because of that, Claude is convinced the chief deity has personally taken notice of Hibiki and developed a real interest in him. Still, Hibiki struggles to accept that if the chief deity were going to focus on anyone, it would somehow be Claude and Lillian rather than himself. Even so, he keeps wondering why Lillian was given the Raging Sanctuary skill in the first place, since it sounds like a brutal burden for anyone to carry. But neither Claude nor Lillian recognizes the name of the skill, so Hibiki explains that it is an ability that floods her with an immense and uncontrollable surge of power, tearing through her from within. That revelation shocks Lillian to her core, and Hibiki instantly regrets ever bringing it up. Claude then steps in and says he doubts the chief deity was responsible for granting that skill to her at all. In his view, it was probably the deity of magic, since anything connected to magic falls under her domain. The chief deity grows slightly uneasy just as the deity of magic makes herself known and speaks directly to Hibiki, telling him that Lillian is indeed suffering because of the Raging Sanctuary skill. But once a skill has been bestowed, it cannot simply be erased. But then she informs him that he carries her own ability, the grimoire, and that through it he can regulate Lillian's MP and overall magical output to help keep the situation under control. She also makes it clear that he should not misunderstand her involvement, because she will not be stepping in to bail him out every time he finds himself in trouble. Hibiki figures from that explanation that once he activates the grimoire skill, the system itself will step in and take over automatically, handling everything without him needing to micromanage it. So things should run smoothly from here on out. He shares the good news with Claude and Lillian, and both of them are genuinely relieved and thankful to hear it. But right after that, Sappo cuts in and lets Hibiki know that his expert eye skill and tutorial skill are both temporarily offline, meaning she can only support him using the data she has already gathered so far. At the same time, the deity of magic keeps her gaze fixed on Hibiki, studying him closely while being unable to shake the strange feeling that she has seen him somewhere before. Putting that aside for now, Hibiki activates the grimoire skill, which ends up summoning a tiny, adorable cat who cheerfully announces that she has arrived to guide Lillian in controlling her magic and introduces herself as Veen. Lillian is instantly overwhelmed by how ridiculously cute Veen is and immediately starts petting her without even thinking twice. Hibiki then asks Veen about the grimoire, and she casually reveals that she herself is the grimoire, as well as a powerful sacred beast created by the deity of magic. That explanation reassures Hibiki, and he reaches out to gently pat her on the head, but the moment he does, Claude gets visibly jealous and quickly speaks up, making it painfully obvious that Hibiki has not given him a single head pat yet. At the same time, Amelia, Ivel, and Stalia are shown unwinding together in a hot spring, and Stalia briefly gets thrown off by the sheer size of Amelia's sideboard before snapping herself back into focus. Amelia then asks Stalia about the important mission her father assigned to her, but Stalia admits she still has not been told any of the details. After that, Amelia turns to Ivel and casually asks if she can help wash her back. But Ivel bluntly refuses, which only makes Amelia laugh to herself as she realizes they have not quite warmed up to each other yet. Stalia then jumps in and tells Amelia she is coming on way too strong with Ivel, pointing out that simply washing each other's backs is not something that automatically makes people friends. Ivel hears the entire conversation and a faint smirk forms on her face. She then stands up and tells Amelia she will go ahead and help her after all, catching Amelia completely off guard, but Ivel just shrugs it off and says that's what friends do for each other. That concludes this episode. Thank you for watching. If you want to see the next part, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell.